Hey, Margie here. Are you ready to learn how you can garden all year round? Well, today that's what we're going to talk about because there's so many benefits from gardening. And our special guest is Katie Oglesby, who's also known as the Garden Girl. Katie creates gardens that make it fun and easy to elevate your home, garden, diet, and life. And there's just nothing better than using freshly harvested ingredients in your home cooked meals or arranging flowers from your very own yard. As a garden designer and certified health coach, her specialty is designing beautiful gardens that help you and your family reach your health and lifestyle goals. Gardens are truly a way to heal your body, clear your mind, nourish your soul, and love your life. And in today's episode, Katie shares fabulous strategies and ways that we can garden all year long and reap the amazing benefits. So this is full of so much practical information, and just stay tuned. Welcome, Katie. I am really, really thrilled to have you on the podcast. And just this topic that we're talking about is really fun, but it's also something that can just benefit everybody. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this with you today.
Well, I always love hearing about the backstory. How did you become the gardening queen and what all the work that you do? Can you just sort of share how you got into what you're involved with today?
Most certainly. So my husband, when I met him, was a gardener. And a few years ago, we kind of experimented. We did some farmers markets. We had fun with it. And it wasn't until a few years after that that I experienced a health crisis. And trying to navigate that, I wasn't getting a lot of answers. So one weekend I was binge watching, which then was Food Matters TV, and all these documentaries about our food. And it was this aha moment of, Katie, your soil is depleted. Like, your garden is healthy, but your soil is depleted. And I really literally and figuratively rolled up my sleeves and got my hands dirty. I went back to the garden. I started to understand where our food comes from, how our food is grown, and how to really elevate my own diet to heal. So that's where the garden really came into, kind of into a new perspective for me. So I started focusing on quality soil, understanding the different benefits of different things we were growing. The average gardener has the zucchini, tomatoes, and peppers. And I really started to expand to different greens and herbs and understanding how to use these herbs to flavor my food versus the seasoned salts that we find at the grocery store, which are laden full of lots of ingredients that really do not serve us. And in the meantime, I had an anaphylactic reaction while getting my hair colored and had to give myself the EpiPen in the salon. And that was another indicator. And that really spiraled my health down. I ended up with filaments on my eyes, but it really brought in that whole toxicity level of what is in our food, what is in our products, and the importance of organic growing. And while the organic system may not be perfect, I had more control if I grew it myself. So that really catapulted me into up-leveling my garden and really sharing this experience with other people and showing them how, I think we have a little bit of a misconception. We see these victory garden pictures and people bent over and it's labor intensive, and it can be a little bit of a deterrent for people to want to do that. So I started gardening differently in raised beds, making them aesthetically pleasing. The technical term would be a kitchen garden, like a potager garden you would see kind of back in Europe. It was right outside their kitchen, easy access to the kitchen. And the whole thing is to grow it and to bring it into your food, bring it into your meals, and really elevate your plate. So that's really where I started to really dig into this and want to share it with other people, that we can make this simpler. We can elevate our health. We can grow nutrient-dense food. And when you realize that your food is traveling on average 1,200 miles to you, it's sitting somewhere, it's losing some nutrient density, and we don't really know where things were, how they were grown, how they were managed. And so I think it's just kind of a testament to show that we can have even a little bit of impact in our own diet and grow a little bit of our own food.
I love this. And it also just feels, I know even my garden, which isn't huge, but I love it. There's nothing more fulfilling than eating the herbs, going outside, picking the herbs and putting them on your food. You feel so good. And those tomatoes, they're just something when you grow your own things. Oh my gosh. I'm so impressed with the work you do, but I just think I know the little bit the food that I get in the summer, and we're going to talk about that because it stops. My garden's completely done. And I know after talking to you that that doesn't have to be that way. And there's things we can do all year round, but it's also relaxing. There's something so, it's a way of grounding, just being outside, being in the dirt or whatever we're doing with that. It just takes you away from our day to day computer and work. And it's just such a win-win in so many ways. And that's why I wanted you on here. I feel for everybody listening is that number one, it's extremely healthy. We can get so many nutrients whatever we do, even if we do one bit of what you're going to talk about today. But number two, it's just getting us grounded, getting us back with nature. It's just I love it. So I'm so excited because I really could spend I mean, I love taking care of plants. I could, I don't, but anytime I spend outside, it's just sometimes in the morning in the summer, it's one of my favorite things, just watering the plants and just seeing how everything's growing. So, all right. So let's talk about this about all year round, because this is a new concept for me. For me, when the cold comes, garden's done, end of it. And sometimes I do a few herbs inside, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So tell us how this can work all year round for people living in colder climates. I live in New Jersey, and people wherever they are. Just tell us about the seasons and how we can do this.
So I'm in Wisconsin and we have 4 seasons. So we have cold, cool, warm, and hot. In most climates, you have at least 3 seasons. So here in Wisconsin, I'm cold, cool, warm, and then we go back to cool, cold. So we have this cycle. And it's really understanding what plants grow best in which seasons. And really, I have my clients fill out a little chart so they understand like the high and low temperature of each month and what season that falls in. So you kind of have an understanding in this visual of how to grow. So in Wisconsin, I've been eating out of my garden since April, and I'm still eating salad greens now through December. So that was my goal, right? We have this gardening myth by the industry that a lot of it is Memorial Day to Labor Day, and we wrap it up. And I think if we're going to go through this effort, that we should extend our seasons. So I grow in cold frames right now. You can also have little plastic hoops that you can hoop in your raised bed. We've done that both ways, but it's a way to extend the seasons. And the maintenance is very low. I go out and check on my greens every couple of days right now, just when I want to harvest them. Very little watering is needed. And so those are 2 ways to maximize your gardening outside.
So wait, can we just go over those again? So what exactly do you put over it?
So there's like a cold frame, and you can buy them online, and it's like a box. Mine's a box. It sits in my garden bed, and it has kind of like a clear plastic on the top. So sun can get through, but it's insulating them. And since greens can tolerate some cold, we've had a 9-degree day here already, and they survive that just fine. And, and the other great thing is carrots love to overwinter. So I have a lot of carrots planted. So even if it gets too cold, I know then at least early in spring, I'm going to have some fresh carrots coming because they're completely fine to overwinter. So it's really, again, like I said, thinking about how to maximize your seasons and what grows well. So my cold frames are 4x4. So that's 16 square feet. It's not big. It doesn't take a lot of work. And like I said, we planted them last February. And starting in April, we were having my husband and I fresh salad every day. So it doesn't take up a lot of space. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's just a little bit of planning ahead of time. So
are there certain lettuces that you recommend that would be best suited for this?
So spinach is a great cool season plant, arugula, kale. So you can have some baby kale. You don't have to let it get, to full grown. I have some romaine in there that, there's different varieties when you go to order seeds. Some are meant for heat, so they're bolt tolerant, and some are meant for cool seasons. So you can just kind of read on that. They indicate that. And then I have like a butterhead that's also a cool season. along with my carrots. So those are all growing right now. I have 2 cold frames. And
What's the earliest you can start the, so if you don't start them until after the summer plants, is that correct? Or you can.
that is correct. So I was even a little late this year and I planted them in October.
Mhm.
And we've been eating out of them the last couple of weeks. Now, the sun is obviously not as strong right now, so you're not going to get that quick bounty like you would in the summer, but I'm happy to supplement, what I have to get at the grocery store to be able to go and pick my greens.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so you can buy cold frames online and people can make them for you. It's not that hard. Or again, when we first started doing it, I would just take some PVC pipe and put a little plastic hoop over it, and you'd be surprised that little bit of insulation, what you can grow. So it doesn't have to be expensive or anything like that, but it works. It works great. And like I said, I'm happy to still be able to get my hands a little bit dirty and pick some fresh salad greens are the best thing to kind of push all year round.
And in terms of the watering, you said you water it less in the winter?
I do water it less.
Like
Probably.
how much?
I have not watered mine in 4 or 5 days right now. And I just, I lift the lid, I stick my finger in it, a little bit, I can tell it's moist. And so the maintenance of it is much less versus the summer gardening, because it's at a little bit of a slower pace and we aren't dealing with really hot temperatures.
Great.
So the other thing you guys can do is microgreens. They're a great, easy way to grow indoors. They pack a lot of nutrient value in those little microgreens, and they're expensive in the store. So you can have a little tray. Hamama has a nice little kit you can buy, or you can get your own tray and sprinkle them in. And even if you don't have a grow light, putting them under like an under cabinet light or in a bright window, they will do just fine. So it's a great way to sprinkle those on your salad or your sandwich or soup, that you can still get some of that fresh greens and not have to go to the grocery store and get them. So
You're
that is
absolutely
like,
right. They are expensive. In
Yeah.
Whole Foods, the organic microgreens, they are. Are there certain ones that you recommend? Certain.
some of my favorite, I love the sunflower sprouts. So that's one of my favorite. We grow those regularly. The broccoli sprouts are good. I like those because they have a different health benefit from that plant family. There's lots of different ones. If you like some spice, there's radish sprouts. So some of it is kind of having fun, play with it. Try a few different ones. I know, like with the Hamama, you can buy your own little kits and mix and match the little mats. So you can kind of have fun, see what your family likes, sprinkle them in your eggs. And, it's a good way too, just to get the family involved in a little bit of growing too.
I'm big. I have broccoli sprouts every day, but I buy them and they are expensive, but they're totally, the benefits of that are just, all of these microgreens, they have so many benefits. It's just, it's way beyond regular broccoli actually when they're sprouted like that. So, that's so exciting. I definitely going to try this. And how big an area do you need for these?
You can have an area, I would say some of the kits are literally only this big, or you can get like one of those trays or flats you'll see at your local greenhouse you can get to. It really depends on your family size. I will start one and maybe 5 days later start another one. So you have that continual process coming, but they're really a space saver on your countertop. So people that have small spaces or limited space, there shouldn't be an excuse. They're really easy to kind of tuck in anywhere.
And so you can do that all year round?
Yes, you can do that all year round.
What a great way to add nutrients. That's fantastic. And it's not hard. You're telling us it's not hard to do.
I'm telling you, it's not hard. So you can get kits where you set them in water and let them do their thing. Or I have a bag of compost that I bring in before it gets cold in the garage. And I just have a little bucket and I sprinkle it in and do a fresh flat. And that's just because I like to do bigger volume. But it's not that hard. It's not that much of a mess. And there's even little kits that are aesthetically pleasing and put on your table. And I think Gardener Supply has them where they have little bamboo accents and has a little grow light built right into it. So there's no excuse. You just stick them in there. And you can also grow little lettuces in there. Or if you have a lettuce bowl, or again, if you're even in that closer to that southern hemisphere, you can put them in a sunny window. Or so there's really no reason that you can't grow some type of green year round, regardless of where you live.
Wow, that's great. And you get that little bit, because sometimes people who live in cold climates, you sort of feel like even though you get outside, you miss that. So I'm excited for this because you're now motivating me to do this, not just buy them from the store. So you have some other amazing tips how to store your food in the winter, so that it does last longer.
Yeah. So one of the big benefits of kale is kale even gets a little sweeter after a light frost. So even when you're busy at the end of the year and fall for gardening, I even let mine get a little bit of a light frost, and I will start to harvest my kale. And Italian parsley actually will tolerate a little bit too. So I leave that in the garden till the end. And so what I'll do is I will cut it off. I'll take the rib out of the kale and I will vacuum seal pouches of them. So I vacuum seal it and I put it in the freezer. And I do that same thing for a lot of my herbs because they will stay green with the vacuum sealing process because you're sucking the air out. So it feels like when you're still adding something green and fresh. I know dried herbs are great, but there's times where I still want that, that dark green. And so I'll pull that kale out when I'm making soups or smoothies, just to be able to add that extra little punch in there. I just chop it up. It'll be a little bit of wet, throw it in my soup. And I kind of feel like I still have that garden that's giving year round.
Wow. What process do you use for the vacuum sealing?
I wipe it down, usually depending on if it's been muddy or whatever. I'll rinse it, I'll pat it dry, and I'll cut the rib out and I'll put so many in per pouch. You can buy pouches pre-cut. I'll slide them in there, seal them up, and in the freezer they go. It's quick, it's efficient. I love to do it with basil too, because it's very hard to get fresh basil. And I don't hear in Wisconsin, it's not great looking all winter long. And I don't know where it's been. It's kind of, so it's a great way to, if you want to have that basil flavor or some of your other herb flavors, I will do the same thing. I'll rinse and dry them. I'll take a bunch of leaves, a handful, put them in a pouch, seal them. And in the winter, I'll pull them back out and be able to add them back into my food.
Wow. Here they do sell basil all year round as little plants, but they don't last long. Indoor plants. What's your thought on that?
Well, basil likes it really warm and likes a lot of sunshine. It is that warm, hot season plant. And so it's really hard unless you have a really great space or almost like those 3-season sunrooms to keep it going and regenerating. So some people can get it to go depending on the light in your home. I don't have the right windows facing the right direction for that for me. You could put it under a grow light. Again, it's perfect condition, but you can limp a little bit of it along. But I just found that I grow extra of it in the summer and save it for winter that way. It just seems to be a little bit more, the better use of my time for that specific plant.
Yeah, it's never worked for me. I'll buy it and then maybe I'll put it in one dish. And then the next 2 days, it's like limp done.
I know.
So, okay. So from the expert, it's not worth doing. Better because in the summer you can get so much basil, just like you're saying, better than to store it. How long can you store it in the freezer the way that you're talking about in these bags?
I've had it up to 2 years in the freezer.
2 years?
Mm-hmm.
In those pouches.
I've found it and I've been like, ooh, I still have some, that I might have missed one. And it's been completely fine. As long as the seal doesn't get broken, it stays green. It doesn't usually last that long because I love it, but it can last as long as the seal isn't broken. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with tarragon and rosemary and parsley is so good for you. Fresh parsley, cilantro. It kind of depends on where you are. The access for me to get, I'm an hour from a Whole Foods. So for me to get fresh organic produce it's not readily available for me. So this is a great solution. And I know where it came from.
Wow. So you can grow enough herbs over the summer, store them. That's really fantastic. Wow. So that's a better way than trying to do a little herb garden in your house. Are there any herbs that do well in the house that's easy to do?
You can bring some rosemary in. Sometimes rosemary will fare okay in the winter. I've seen some curly parsley come in the winter and that's fared okay. And you could probably get thyme to cooperate with you a little bit too. Those would be the ones that I would recommend. Yeah. If you have a sunny window, I'd give it a try.
Okay. So now let's move on. So that's what we can do in the winter. When do we start? We don't have to wait till till it's Mother's Day to start planting. Keep
You
going.
know.
What's the next step? Because you have a whole year-long process, which
Mhm.
is really exciting because this is fun. And why not maximize and be ready? I'm never ready. I'm the person buying everything at the last minute. So now, not this year, Katie. You're
No.
motivating me. I'm going to be like so on the ball. Okay. So now tell us, when's the first thing that we can do to get ourselves prepared?
Okay. So the first thing I would do is get your seeds ordered, decide what you want to try. I always encourage people, have fun with it, try something new. Like being a gardener is a lifelong learning process. So enjoy it, embrace it. So I order my seeds, and in February, I go out there with the shovel and I shovel the snow off my beds. And you can put plastic over it or a cold frame or whatever it is that you're going to do. Start to warm up the ground a little bit, and I'll throw a fresh inch or two of compost on top, and I'll start planting in February, end of February. I'll start planting again.
Can I
So I'll
ask you
start,
something about that?
yeah.
It's interesting because is that something that you recommend with the compost?
Mhm. I always say every time you're replanting, you add fresh compost to the top, at least an inch or two.
Oh, okay.
So I always have it. I always have it on because it's like those plants before kind of used up what possibly the nutrients were available in that compost. So you want to start the plants out on the best foot as possible. And I would say if you have something that's a problem growing in your garden, the first place we're going to look is your soil. Like that is the number one thing to do. If I have a client that's struggling or I'm struggling, it's the soil. So I always add a fresh organic quality compost.
And you purchase that. You purchase that?
I do purchase that. So I recommend mushroom compost. Here in Wisconsin, we have a local compost maker. I support them. I buy theirs. They're called Purple Cow Organics. But you can buy a bag or two before winter and keep it in the garage. It'll be fine. And adding that fresh layer, so it'll start to grow, and the dirt underneath will start to thaw as you've covered it. So I plant the seeds directly into the compost, lightly water them, put the cold frame or plastic back over them, and they will start growing. So
wow, that's
spinach is
incredible.
about 30 days. So think like we're depending on where you live. So spinach is ready in 30 days. And even though the conditions aren't optimal, in March, you should be able to have spinach come April. So kind of like counting back on some of these plants. And so you want to start with maybe some of the quickest ones to come first. Spinach is a great option and very tolerant of the cold.
Wow, that's so interesting. I have a sister-in-law who has animals. She has horses and she has donkeys. And anyway, but what happened, because she has manure, she has all this stuff. Oh my goodness. The food that she grows, I've never seen anything like it. It's so impressive. But that's something I never think of. I never think of buying compost. So you're saying even if you don't do it in the winter, any point in time, it's a better way to garden. Oh, wow. That's a fantastic
I'm
tip.
adding compost regularly. So depending on what I'm growing, like there's different growing methods, right? We grow in rows, and in the traditional, like I say, vegetable patch, like in the ground, I do grow in rows, but in my raised beds, I intensively plant. So I know that I'm planting those plants very close together, and I want to make sure that they have all the nutrients they need to survive and thrive. So always feeding them. So whether you top dress around your plants once a month with some fresh compost or fish emulsion or whatever your choice is I recommend giving your garden a nutrient support once a month.
Wow. This is
So
fantastic.
compost is great. Like you can't really go wrong with it. There's mushroom, there's manure, you have all different kinds of types and things like that. I mean, I recommend it be organic. Because whatever you're feeding it, it's taking it up. But I always add a fresh layer, start fresh every time, clean slate, and then we go from there. So I would start, in the winter, pick out your seeds, pick out your location, even if you want to just add a little square raised box out there and fill it with compost, I mean, you'll be surprised. Plants will grow and you'll have your own little salad garden.
Wow. Okay. So then where does that take you to then?
So come April for here in Wisconsin, so my greens are growing, my garlic is starting to come up. There's certain things that can start to go in as we're warming up. So like potatoes, onions, certain tolerant shallots can go in. So I'll start kind of moving with the season as the temperatures start to rise. And I'll be probably mid-May. And I admit, I like to push the limits. I will start with my pepper. Some of my warm season plants that are maybe a little bit more finicky. If I think I'm close to the last frost, I will start putting those in. So you have your basil that's more finicky, whether you're doing seeds or plants, things like that, making sure that ground is warm and you're not having them come up before that last frost. So just kind of you can just Google your frost date, average frost date, and just kind of look at that, and kind of, you can either count backwards or however you want to do it. There's certain plants that like to grow by plants, and there's certain fruits and veggies that like to grow by seed. And so kind of looking at that, like what you spend, your money on at the greenhouse and what you can plant by seed, squash, cucumbers. I recommend planting all of that by seed because the plants prefer it. The transplant process is hard on it, and you don't really know where they came from or how long they've been sitting. So I do have a grower start all of my varieties that I personally like. She starts them in March for me. So anything I'm going to do by plant, that started earlier in the season. And then I prefer to do a lot of my other items by seed. You have more control over the variety. You have more control over the quality. And if you want to grow a couple different types of basil, you have a little bit more room for that. So beans are great by seed. Cucumbers, I'll do some basil by plant and some by seed to make sure to think about, you want that to keep on going. So that's another thing I start to plan out is if I want green beans, it's kind of a joke in Wisconsin is that we all get green beans and zucchini at the same time, and everyone's trying to ditch them in people's cars and give everything away, right? So we don't want to have an abundance of everything at the same time. So to kind of spread out your planting every 2 weeks, add another small section. So you aren't getting everything all at once, or you're sick of it, or you don't know what to do with it, to kind of spread that wealth out and to think about your planting process in your garden. That's a thing I recommend to do in the spring. Pick out your favorites, look at what you love to cook in the kitchen, and what are your favorite recipes? What can you take out of those and grow yourself? And then kind of make your plan from there.
Oh, I love this. So how do you, someone's listening like, oh my gosh, this sounds so good. So can you just tell us how you work with people? Like what are options? I know you teach courses. I don't know exactly what the different courses are that you teach. This is sounding so interesting. I think I'm going to have to take this.
So the first thing is if somebody does not have a garden, I will do a consult with them. So it gets to, so I'll come out, or we can do it virtual. We'll look at where their sun is. We'll do a whole consult on where this garden should go. Then it's based on your budget, your garden goals, your health goals of how we build it out from there. So whether we design it and install it for you, I give you the plans, you do it yourself. So that's one way. So the new gardeners that are like, I can't go down that Google rabbit hole, I'm overwhelmed, I will lay it all out for you, give you all the recommendations, and then go from there.
And I have a question on that. Is it, so it's something someone really who hasn't gardened, you can get it that they can actually do it themselves, or get maybe some help to help build it if they need, but it's doable. Okay.
It's doable. We have DIY instructions. We have people of all different levels that'll buy some products from us, but want to put the sweat equity in, or they want their family and kids involved. This is a lifestyle change. I've had a lot of families where they've had a health crisis, or they've lost a parent, and they are realizing this is going to be a family lifestyle change for all of us. And so sometimes it's not even about the economics, is that they want everybody outside getting their hands dirty, and we're going to do this together. They just need those step-by-step instructions, make sure we're putting it in the optimal location, and then we'll go from there. So there's,
so I have a question. You could actually work with a family. Like you could actually help a whole family to do it. Oh my gosh, how fun.
I have a ton of families this year. And it's funny because if your kids grow it, they're more likely to eat it. It's even at the farmer's market, I had some parents that would be mortified. They're like, why is there dirt on that carrot? And they were like, It came from the ground. I think kids are disconnected, and we're starting to see that come back. These parents want them to see, where does your food come from? And we just did a garden design where I had a bed that was a little bit lower height for the kids to have their own garden, and then mom has her gardens around it. So the whole family is engaged, and a ton of families this summer. It was so great to see everybody getting involved. And yeah, and then they're bringing it into the kitchen. They're learning how to cook different and to use it differently. And so that is kind of the other thing, is I'll offer ongoing coaching and support throughout the year. Should people need help, they get stuck or struggle, succession planting plans, to whatever degree you need, I'm there to help. And so this year we're going to launch a group program this spring, just to help some of those beginner gardeners, and they can kind of have their own community together of what to do each month in the garden, little tutorials in pruning and planting. We'll go live and we'll do some Q&A once a month. And then we're also going to really take it to the next level of into the kitchen. So we have a chef that's making some recipes for people, so they know, everyone gets sick of the almond green beans or the boiled beets. So let's make sure that we're teaching everybody, let's really elevate this kitchen on your plate and your meals together, getting families to cook more together. So that's going to be a big part of the component too, is really making sure that all that's coming into the kitchen and then also being preserved for later.
Oh, so just like you were talking about what to save for next year. Wow, this
Mm-hmm.
is fantastic, Katie. I love all this. So is there any other things that we've not touched on? I know we could talk for so long, but I wanted to just give people the basics of what's possible, because I didn't know all this was possible until I met you. And I was really so impressed with what you're doing and how we can extend the season. And this has really enlightened me that I'm going to be doing a lot more, because I love gardening.
Hey.
I do. I don't have a ton of time, but any little bit is just feels so good. And you're nurturing yourself. I mean, what a wonderful thing to do for yourself as well as for your family and everybody else. It's just such a win-win. And that's great. But is there anything that you want to share with people that we haven't brought up that might be important for everybody to know?
I think that really thinking about, like you said, I think gardening can be accessible to anybody, and it can be what you want it to be. So if you one year are like, I don't have this time, but I need a beautiful space to relax. So we talk about flowers, right? Flowers are also edible. Just doing a simple urban tea garden that you can use later. We can go lower maintenance. So I think really expanding that to just creating a space, like you said, that you can enjoy, that you can relax, that we're outside, we're experiencing nature. It's healthy to get our hands dirty and to be in that soil. It boosts our immune systems. So I think that just understanding it can be as low or high maintenance as you want, just depending on what your goals are. And that can change from year to year. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands everybody can be a gardener.
Oh, I love this. And you have some handouts for people. Is that correct?
I do. I will make sure you have, so I have a little urban tea garden guide that you can download. If you sign up for my email list, it's on there. I can also give it to you for your podcast notes. And it'll just kind of give you some good ideas of how to use those herbs and to dry them into teas or infuse into your oils or vinegars or salad dressings. So just kind of get that brain thinking of all the possibilities that what the garden can do for you.
And then if they do that, will you, because I don't think you have all the information yet on your class for April, right?
I do not have it already yet, but if you're on my email list, you'll be the first to know when that program launches.
Oh, that sounds so great. Oh, well, this has been just really wonderful. So eye-opening. Here's my plan. The broccoli sprouts, I buy them and I eat them every single day. So that I'm going to start growing. That's my number one thing.
Yay!
And I'm going to look into starting much earlier, obviously. And yeah, there's a bunch of things that you've really gotten me excited about, because I usually just wait till Mother's Day. Now I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
So
Good,
no,
I'm excited.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I'll have all your contact information. Do you want to just tell everybody your website?
Sure. It's KatieOglesby.com. It's KatieOglesby. And my Instagram is Katie M. Oglesby. Those are the two best places to find me.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Katie, for being here and really inspiring us. I'm excited to hear from the listeners what you're going to try, and because this is great. This is just such a if you're thinking of me, I'm big into happiness, Katie, but this is one way that we
Mhm.
can all not only improve our health, but truly elevate our happiness and just make us all feel good. So thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. I learned so much and I'm now really inspired to do gardening throughout the year. All the links that Katie talked about will be in the show notes. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.